Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's episode, this is going to be part 2 of Lessons in Insanity. Now, as you can see on the map there, we're looking at Washington, D.C. Now, the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, is now hearing arguments about why men with certain sexual fetishes should not be allowed to participate in high-level or even lower-level female sports. Can you believe we are actually even having this conversation? Right? We are now in a space where a significant percentage of Democrats believe that men with sexual fetishes should be allowed to participate in female sports. And this is a sword they're willing to fall upon. It is that important to them. You would think there are more important ideas, more important subjects that could be tackled to help the American people. But as we speak, this issue has gone before the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, I had asked the question in a previous episode, at what point would you, as an American, be okay with pausing the democratic process? At what point would you be okay with that? And I got to tell you, if we look at some of the leadership in the Democrat Party, this is one right here. Let's pull up another one. There's another one. Political and governmental leadership. You're looking at them. Would you say at this point, this is a road that you cannot go down? I think we all have, at a certain point, we have a breaking point where we can say, no, we're not going to go down this road. I'm not following you down this rabbit hole. Not going to happen. If we would have talked about this, let's say 50, 60 years ago, let's go back to the 1930s or 1940s. The concept of this, which you see on our screen right now, would have been considered insane. The thought process that this person would become a high-ranking official in the government of the United States back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, even 60s would be considered impossible. It would be considered, if you had brought it up, that this was going to happen, they probably would have thought you crazy. But this is the new normal. This is the new normal. So at what point, if you're looking at this new normal, right, and you look into the future, what would be considered absolutely insanity now, now in the year 2026. That could become the new normal in just a few years. What would that be? What could that look like? Well, there's all sorts of things that could happen next in regarding to these sexual fetishes that you're seeing right here. Lots of things could be next. These individuals are allowed to float to the top because we allow it. If we disallowed this from happening, if you made these individuals afraid to float to the top, they would stay hidden at the bottom. They would. And right now, unfortunately, we as a people do not have the courage to push these individuals back down to the bottom. It existed. It has existed in the past, but it was prevented from becoming the new normal by brave men and women. So again, at what point would you be okay with saying, stop? Enough is enough. We have to pause things for a period of time where we can reset our moral compass. Let us go back to being normal. Let us go back to being rational. In California, they are actively considering reparations for slavery. This is something that is probably going to happen at some point on the current course we are on. The current course we are on, just like allowing this to occur on your screen here, you will in all probability see your children or your children's children, or possibly even yourself, if you live in California, which was never a slave state, there were no slaves in California, you will probably see yourself at some point paying reparations to a certain group of people who, through the quote-unquote democratic process, has chosen to take property and money from you for something that they were never harmed. They were never the victims of slavery or indentured servitude. What else could be next? It's difficult to say. But it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I mean, right now, it's difficult for these neoliberals to operate in the current administration. But we are one election away from continuing on this course in insanity. So again, at what point do brave men and women say, enough is enough? We're going to have to hit the pause button, and we're going to have to change course. Now, how long will that pause take? And what would it look like post-pause and during the pause? Well, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging for some. But again, this that you see on your screen should be a road that you're not willing to go down. Unless you have some sort of asocial disorder, which clearly these individuals do. But just because they have this asocial disorder does not mean they become our leaders in the future. This does not mean that their beliefs, their distorted beliefs, should become policy. Your daughters should not have to compete against men with sexual fetishes that desire to get into the locker rooms of women and dress up like females. This does not mean that we are forced to change our language and adopt the insanity of various pronouns. And again, much of what we are seeing right now in terms of this is because of the educational systems in the United States. Those educational systems inside the United States have to be radically reformed. You are getting this sort of personality and activity coming to the top, coming out of the shadows, and attempting to establish itself as mainstream because of the educational systems in the United States. The pause button has to be hit, and we have to analyze what is happening within our political system, and more importantly, our educational systems. This insanity is going to eventually take us to a place that no one wants to go. It is going to take us to a place. It is going to take us into the abyss of darkness that no one can even conceptualize right now. This is where this is heading. It is heading in that direction. And this is the tip of the iceberg of what is to come if we allow this to occur. Now look, we could be in a space where 51, 52 out of 100 people appear to be okay with this. But this is where brave men and brave women, even if it is a minority, you then must become the kinetic majority in order to overturn what is happening. This, what you see on our screen, on your screen, this is the pathway to something you cannot yet comprehend, where we are heading. And it's going to have to stop. Now, stopping this, again, it is going to be challenging. It is not going to be pretty. And quite possibly, in some cases, it is going to have to be kinetic. You are going to have to reestablish yourself by saying no. And you're going to have to drive these individuals back into the shadows. At a certain point, you have to say, this is not acceptable. This is not the society we want. And then you execute. But make no mistake, the pathway we are on right now, action is going to have to be taken. And again, for these folks, it's not going to be pretty, unfortunately for them, but they have chosen this for themselves. And because we exist in apogee, at the pinnacle prior to the downward slide of a civilization, you see this. You see this manifest itself. And then again, this is where brave men and brave women stand up and say, no. No. We will not allow this to continue. We're not going to allow this to happen. And then you put a stop to it. You end it by whatever means necessary. As always, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. Good day.